When I was little, I remember watching my mother at the kitchen sink. She was strong, but sometimes I'd see her stop, her hands still wet with soap, and tears would fall. She thought no one noticed. But I did. That image never left me because I learned something powerful. Women are often the world's greatest warriors in public, and its most silent sufferers in private. And here's the truth. Loneliness doesn't always look like being alone. Sometimes it looks like being surrounded by people, yet still feeling unseen. Loneliness has a disguise. It doesn't always show up as a woman sitting in an empty room, staring out the window with tears rolling down her cheeks. Sometimes it looks like the woman who dresses beautifully, shows up to work with a bright smile, and laughs at the right jokes. It looks like the mother who packs lunch boxes in the morning, drives the kids to school, and posts happy pictures on Instagram, yet feels an aching emptiness when the lights go off at night. Loneliness is clever. It wears masks. And the truth is, we've all walked past lonely women and mistaken them for being perfectly fine. Think about your daily life for a moment. Maybe you know that coworker who always brings energy into the room. She's the one people rely on for advice, the one who covers for others when they're behind, the one who cracks jokes during long meetings. Everyone assumes she's got it all together. But what nobody notices is how quickly she walks back to her car after work, sitting there for a few extra minutes in silence, because that's the only time she can let her guard down. That's loneliness in disguise. Or picture the friend who is always the first to comment on your posts, who sends birthday wishes before anyone else, who plans gatherings so no one feels left out. She seems like the heartbeat of the group. But when the party's over and everyone goes home, she is left washing dishes in silence, wondering why no one ever asks her how she's really doing. That is loneliness too. It doesn't scream. It whispers quietly behind closed doors. What makes loneliness even harder is that it often gets misinterpreted. We think loneliness means someone has no one around them. But some of the loneliest women are those who are surrounded by people every single day, at work, at home, even in marriages or friendships. The loneliness comes from not being truly seen, not being deeply known, not having someone who asks the second question when they say, "I'm fine." That's the disguise. The world sees a strong, smiling face, but underneath is a heart longing for someone to notice. I once heard someone describe loneliness as being in a crowded elevator. You're shoulder to shoulder with people, but nobody makes eye contact, nobody speaks, and you feel invisible even though you're right there. That's exactly how many women live, present in every role they play, yet unseen in who they really are. And here's the paradox, women have been conditioned for centuries to disguise their loneliness. Society applauds resilience, strength, multitasking, and sacrifice. So when a woman feels lonely, she quickly hides it under the mask of business. She'll say, "I'm too busy to feel that way." She'll overfill her calendar, run errands, keep herself moving, because slowing down might mean confronting the ache inside. Loneliness hides in that motion. It wears the disguise of productivity. But let me tell you this, disguised loneliness is dangerous, not because it makes someone weak, but because it convinces the world that she doesn't need help. And when help doesn't come, she learns to stay silent. She learns to smile bigger, laugh louder, post happier pictures while the cracks beneath the surface deepen. Think about the last time you saw someone who seemed absolutely fine. Did you check in? Did you wonder what was behind the smile? Often the people who appear the strongest are the ones holding the heaviest burdens. They don't want to be a bother. They don't want to seem needy. So they disguise their loneliness as independence. And while independence is beautiful, forced independence born out of loneliness can be heartbreaking. Now, here's where daily life can shift things. Imagine if, when you saw that friend who is always the strong one, you paused and said, "I really want to know, how are you truly?" Imagine if, instead of accepting, "I'm fine," as the answer, you gently gave her permission to drop the disguise. That moment could be the first time in weeks, months, or even years that she felt safe enough to let her loneliness be seen. Because here's the truth, loneliness loses power when it's spoken. but it thrives when it's hidden, and women are experts at hiding it. They tuck it behind their jobs, their roles as mothers, daughters, friends, partners. They keep showing up because that's what women do. But showing up doesn't mean they're not hurting. I think of loneliness as a shadow. It follows us around, sometimes faint, sometimes heavy. But when light shines on it, when someone notices, when someone asks, when someone chooses to listen, the shadow softens. It doesn't vanish, but it becomes less heavy. So the next time you look at a woman who seems like she has it all together, I want you to remember this loneliness has a disguise. It might be wrapped in laughter, covered in success, or hidden in business. But it's there, and your presence, your empathy, your willingness to see beyond the surface, that could be the very thing that reminds her she is not invisible. Because beneath the disguise of loneliness, what every woman longs for is simple to be seen, to be heard, and to know she doesn't have to cry hidden tears anymore. For generations, women have been told that their silence is admirable, that holding everything together without complaint is a badge of honor, that keeping quiet about their struggles, their disappointments, and their heartbreak somehow makes them stronger. But the truth is, many women stay silent not because they are unshakably strong, but because silence feels like the only way to survive. Think about it. A woman in a workplace faces criticism or dismissive comments, but she bites her tongue because speaking up might label her as too sensitive or too emotional. She swallows her words, not because she has nothing to say, but because she knows that raising her voice might cost her respect, opportunities, or even her job. That silence is not her strength. It is her shield. It is the way she protects herself in an environment that was never designed to fully hear her. Or consider the woman at home. In a family that relies on her for everything, she cooks, she cleans, she carries the emotional weight of everyone else's worries. She feels exhausted, unseen, but when she finally thinks about saying, "I need help," she stops herself. Why? Because she fears being called ungrateful, lazy, or weak. So she chooses silence, not because she wants to, but because it feels safer than risking rejection. That silence isn't strength. It's survival in a household where her needs aren't valued as much as her service. We often look at quiet women and assume they are strong because they never complain, because they keep showing up with a smile. But silence does not always equal strength. Sometimes it means she has learned the hard way that speaking her truth brings more pain than keeping it inside. There's a story I once heard about a little girl who fell on the playground. She scraped her knee badly, and tears welled up in her eyes. But as she looked around, she saw her classmates laughing, waiting to see if she would cry. She quickly wiped her tears, put on a brave face, and said, "I'm fine." That moment planted a seed. Don't let them see you hurt. Don't let them see you need comfort. Don't let them see you vulnerable. And that seed grows with her into adulthood until silence becomes her default response to pain. That is survival. That is how women adapt to a world that doesn't always make space for their truth. But here's the tragedy. When silence is mistaken for strength, women are left carrying heavy loads alone while everyone applauds them for being so strong. No one notices that her silence is not a victory, but a plea for safety. Imagine this in daily life. A woman goes through a divorce. People around her say, "You're so strong. You didn't even cry. You kept going to work, kept raising your kids, kept moving forward." They celebrate her silence as resilience. But what they don't see are the nights she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she failed, wondering if she'll ever feel whole again. Her silence was not strength. It was survival. It was the only way she knew how to get through the storm without falling apart in front of others. Or think about the woman who loses a parent. Everyone says she's handling it so well. She hasn't broken down once. But they don't know that she cries quietly in her car before going inside, so no one will see her red eyes. Her silence doesn't mean she isn't grieving. It means she feels the pressure to appear strong because people are watching. Her silence is her armor. This is the dangerous myth we have to dismantle, that silence equals strength. Because when we believe that, we stop asking questions, we stop checking in, We stop creating safe spaces for women to share what's really going on. But here's the truth women often carry alone. Silence feels like survival because it reduces risk. If she doesn't speak, she won't be judged. If she doesn't cry, she won't be mocked. If she doesn't ask for help, she won't be disappointed. And so silence becomes the strategy to endure a world that doesn't always respond with compassion. Yet survival is not the same as living, and silence, though protective, can also be deeply isolating. The cost of survival through silence is loneliness. Women become experts at enduring, but strangers to being known. So when you see a woman who doesn't speak up, who never complains, who stays quiet in the face of hurt, don't assume it's because she's unbreakable. It may be because she has learned that her words don't feel safe in this world. It may be because her silence is the only way she knows to keep moving. And here's the gentle reminder. If you are that woman, if you've carried silence like a cloak for years, I want you to know this. You are strong, yes, but not because of your silence. You are strong because even in silence, you kept going. You are strong because even in survival, you chose not to give up. But please remember, your voice is not a burden. Your needs are not too much. And your pain deserves to be heard because silence may help you survive. But breaking it is what will help you heal. Hidden tears tell stories. They are not just drops of water rolling down a cheek. They are unspoken words, unsent letters, unanswered prayers. They carry within them the weight of memories, disappointments, and dreams that feel too fragile to be shared out loud. When a woman cries alone, she's not only releasing emotion, she's telling a story about something she lost, something she endured, or something she never received in the first place. Every hidden tear is a language of its own. And if you could listen closely, you'd hear a voice behind it saying, "See me, understand me, know what I've been through." Think about a woman you've seen on the bus, gazing out of the window with that faraway look in her eyes. To strangers, she looks calm, maybe tired. But if you could see her later at home, you'd notice the quiet tears she wipes away before she goes to bed. Maybe those tears carry the story of a heartbreak she never saw coming. Maybe they carry the memory of a loved one she's missing. Or maybe they're about the exhaustion of trying so hard every day, yet still feeling unseen. Her hidden tears tell a story no one has stopped to ask about. We often underestimate tears. We think they're weakness or something to hide, but tears are storytellers. They are the body's way of speaking when the mouth cannot. For example, think about a mother who drops her child off at college for the first time. She hugs her child, smiles, and says, "Go chase your dreams. I'm so proud of you." But when she drives home alone, her tears flow. Those tears tell the story of years of sacrifice, of nights spent worrying, of love so deep it hurts. Those hidden tears are a testament to her journey, not a sign of fragility. Or consider the woman who works tirelessly at her job but feels invisible in the office. She stays late, meets deadlines, trains new employees, but the promotion always passes her by. When she finally closes her laptop at midnight and rests her head on the table, tears escape her eyes. They are not just tears of exhaustion. They tell the story of being overlooked, of carrying talent and effort that remain unseen. They whisper a story of longing, to be valued, to be recognized, to matter. Every tear has a reason, even the ones that seem small. Like the woman who tears up in the grocery store aisle when she sees a product that reminds her of her late grandmother. Nobody else notices, but those tears tell a story of love, loss, and memories she wishes she could relive. Or the woman who sits in her car after a hard day, crying silently before fixing her makeup and walking inside to greet her family with a smile. Those tears tell a story of silent endurance, of wanting to be strong for others while carrying her own battles in secret. What makes hidden tears so powerful is that they often come when no one else is around. And because no one sees them, the stories behind them remain untold. That's why so many women carry entire novels of unspoken stories within themselves. Their hidden tears are the punctuation marks in those invisible chapters. Yet, here's the beauty. Tears, even hidden ones, are proof of resilience. If she is crying, it means she still feels. And if she still feels, it means her heart hasn't gone numb. It hasn't hardened completely. That is courage, because to feel in a world that often tells women to toughen up or move on is an act of quiet rebellion. Let's bring this closer to our everyday lives. Maybe you've seen a friend post a cheerful picture online smiling wide with her family. But later, when you check on her privately, you discover she's been crying at night from feeling overwhelmed. That gap, the space between the picture and the hidden tears, is where her true story lives. Or maybe you yourself have wiped away tears in the bathroom at work so no one would notice. Those tears, though hidden, told your story in that moment that something inside you needed to be acknowledged. And while hidden tears are deeply personal, they are also universal. Every woman has them. The details differ, but the essence is the same. Hidden tears tell us where the heart has been, what it has carried, and what it still longs for. They remind us that behind every smile, there is a depth. Behind every silence, there is meaning. So the next time you think someone is too strong to struggle, remember that her hidden tears may have told a different story last night. And if you yourself are the one holding those hidden tears, let me tell you this, your tears do not make you weak. They are evidence that you are living, that you are human, that your story matters, because every hidden tear is like ink on the pages of your life. They are not wasted. They are not shameful. They are the sacred proof that you loved, you cared, you hoped, you endured. And though the world may never see every tear you've cried, they remain a part of the story that makes you who you are today. And maybe one day when you feel safe enough to share those stories, once hidden in your tears, will become someone else's lifeline. Connection heals. It sounds simple, almost too simple. But if you've ever been through heartbreak, loss, or deep loneliness, you know how powerful those words really are. Because pain, when carried alone, feels unbearable. But pain, when shared in connection, becomes lighter. Not because the problem disappears, but because connection reminds us we don't have to carry it all by ourselves. A woman can endure many storms. She can push through long days, shoulder responsibilities, and show up for others even when her own heart feels empty. But the truth is, no matter how strong she seems, no one was ever designed to walk through pain alone. We were wired for connection. Human beings need to be seen, heard, and understood. And for women who carry hidden tears, connection is not just comfort, it is medicine. Think about the moments when connection made a difference in your own life. Maybe you had a terrible day at work. You felt small, overlooked, and exhausted. Then you came home and a friend called, simply asking, "How are you?" Really, as you spoke, you felt your chest loosen, your shoulders relax. The problem wasn't solved, but something shifted. Why? Because someone saw you. Someone cared enough to listen. That is the healing power of connection. Or imagine a woman who recently lost someone she loves. She walks around with a smile saying she's doing okay, but inside, the grief weighs on her like a mountain. One evening, a neighbor drops by with dinner and sits at her table. They don't say much, just share quiet company. For the first time in weeks, she feels less invisible. Her grief doesn't vanish, but the presence of another person gives her strength she didn't know she had. Connection doesn't erase pain, but it wraps it in compassion, making it easier to bear. Daily life is full of opportunities for connection, but often we're too busy or distracted to notice. A kind word to the cashier at the store, a smile to a stranger on the train, a text to a friend who's been quiet. These seem small, but they matter. Sometimes healing begins not in grand gestures, but in tiny moments of being acknowledged. There's a story of a woman who worked in a high-pressure office. Every day, she wore a smile and kept her emotions in check. But one afternoon, after a particularly rough meeting, she went to the restroom and cried silently. As she was about to leave, another coworker entered, noticed her red eyes, and instead of pretending not to see, simply said, "I've had those days too, you're not alone." That sentence didn't fix her career struggles, but it healed something inside her. A sense of isolation. It reminded her she wasn't the only one fighting invisible battles. Connection heals because it tells us, you are not the only one. And for women who carry hidden tears, hearing those words is like water to a thirsty soul. because loneliness convinces us that no one could possibly understand, that no one else has felt this way. But connection proves otherwise. It builds bridges where walls once stood. Consider the power of support groups, where women gather to share experiences of motherhood, of loss, of illness, of recovery. At first, many come in hesitant, unsure whether anyone will understand their story. But as they listen to others, something shifts. They nod through tears, recognizing themselves in each other's words. That recognition is healing, because when you hear someone else say the very thing you've been too afraid to admit, you suddenly realize your lies. You're not crazy, not weak, not alone. You are human, and so are they. Connection doesn't always require deep conversations. Sometimes it's about presence. A daughter sitting with her mother in silence while she grieves. A friend bringing over coffee just to sit and laugh after a hard week. A partner holding your hand in the dark when words fail. These are moments when healing happens, not because problems are solved, but because hearts are linked. And here's something important. Connection heals not only the one receiving it, but also the one giving it. When you comfort someone else, when you listen with empathy, you often find that your own heart feels lighter too. We heal each other by simply showing up. But here's the tragedy. Many women who need connection the most struggle to ask for it. They worry they'll be a burden, that no one has time, that their problems aren't important enough. And so they suffer in silence. This is why connection requires courage on both sides, the courage to reach out and the courage to let someone in. Imagine if we all chose connection more intentionally. If instead of scrolling past, we messaged the friend who hasn't posted in a while. If instead of saying, "Let me know if you need anything," we showed up with a meal or a hug or simply our presence. Imagine how many hidden tears could be met with comfort instead of loneliness, because connection doesn't require perfect words or perfect timing. It just requires willingness, a willingness to say, "I see you, I hear you, you matter." And if you are a woman holding hidden tears today, I want you to remember this as you deserve connection. You deserve people who will sit with you in your pain, who will not run away from your truth, who will love you not despite your vulnerability, but because of it. Healing begins when you let someone in, because connection heals, always. It doesn't erase scars, but it reminds us that scars are not the end of the story. They are simply proof that we survived. And with connection, we can learn to thrive again. Shame thrives in secrecy. It is like mold. It grows strongest in the dark. The less we talk about it, the bigger it becomes. The more we hide it, the heavier it feels. And the cruelest part about shame is that it convinces us to keep quiet, to lock it away, to pretend we are fine, while inside it whispers. If they knew the truth about you, they would turn away. Many women know this whisper well. It shows up in different ways, through mistakes they regret, choices they question, or wounds they carry. Shame makes them believe they are unworthy of love, unworthy of belonging, unworthy of being seen. And because shame thrives in secrecy, women often carry it silently, wearing smiles while their hearts ache under the weight of unspoken stories. Think of a woman who is struggling with debt. She works hard every day, but bills pile up and she feels embarrassed. So she stays silent. At dinners with friends, she nods along when they talk about vacations or shopping trips. While her chest tightens with shame, she tells herself, if they knew how bad it was, they would think less of me. So she hides it. And the shame grows, not because she is unworthy, but because silence gives shame oxygen. Or picture the woman who stayed in a relationship longer than she should have. Friends told her he wasn't good for her, but she believed love would change things. When it ended badly, she blamed herself. Instead of talking about the emotional scars, she put on a brave face. Inside, shame whispered, "You should have known better. You should have left sooner." So she stayed quiet. And the secrecy allowed shame to dig deeper. Daily life is full of these quiet battles. A mother feels guilty for not being perfect. A student feels ashamed for failing an exam. A wife feels unworthy because her marriage doesn't look like the picture she imagined. All of them keep silent, thinking they are the only ones. And yet, What they don't realize is that millions of others are hiding the very same feelings. Shame makes each woman feel isolated, as though her struggle is unique. But in truth, shame thrives in secrecy precisely because silence convinces us we are alone. The most dangerous thing about shame is how it distorts identity. It doesn't just say, you made a mistake. It says, you are the mistake. And when those words go unchallenged, they become part of how a woman sees herself. She stops asking for help. She stops believing she deserves love. She builds walls around her heart, not to protect it from others, but to hide it completely. But here's the beautiful, powerful truth. The moment we speak shame out loud, it begins to lose its grip. Imagine a woman who finally gathers courage to tell a trusted friend, I feel like a failure. She expects judgment. But instead, her friend says, I've felt that way too. You're not alone. Suddenly, shame shrinks. Not because the problem is solved, but because secrecy has been broken. Shame cannot survive being spoken in safe spaces. Think about it like this. If you've ever sat in a circle where women share their stories, you know the magic that happens. One woman talks about depression. Another talks about struggling as a mother. Another shares about losing herself in a toxic relationship. Tears fall, laughter bursts out, heads nod. In that moment, everyone realizes, it's not just me. And in those 3 words, shame loses power. Even in daily conversations, we can see the shift. A colleague admits, I made a mistake on that project, expecting criticism, but instead her team says, it happens, let's fix it together. She feels lighter. Or a friend says, I feel overwhelmed as a mom, and another responds, me too, more often than I admit. Suddenly, connection replaces isolation. Secrecy is broken and shame no longer thrives. The healing begins not in perfection, but in honesty. When a woman dares to share her truth, even with trembling voice and tear-filled eyes, she is planting seeds of freedom. The darkness where shame grows is cracked open by the light of vulnerability. And if you are that woman, if you are holding shame in secret, believing it makes you unworthy, I want you to hear this. Your story does not make you less. Your silence does not have to be permanent. You are not the only one. There is someone who will listen without judgment, someone who will remind you that you are still worthy, still lovable, still enough, because shame thrives in secrecy, but it dies in the light. And every time you choose honesty over hiding, courage over silence, you take power away from shame and return it to yourself. So the next time shame tells you to stay quiet, remember this truth. Your voice is stronger than your fear. Your story deserves to be told. And when you let it out, when you share it with someone safe, you will discover what women before you have discovered. Shame cannot survive being spoken. And in that moment, the chains that secrecy built around your heart will begin to break. And you will step into freedom, lighter, stronger, and more alive than before.